The movie starts with a woman hearing noises from a room. She goes to check, and inside the room a funeral was being held. Shocked, she goes to check the situation, where suddenly the person who was praying changes to a jinn and scares her. Sometimes later, a man named Sadat tells about a paranormal experience he had with his best friend Orhan and his sister Kader. He explains that the situation happened after Orhan and Kader married. In the next scene, Orhan was shown where he fires an employee named Halil from the factory because he was smoking inside the workplace where explosions are stored. Later, Sadat tells Orhan to tell his sister Kader to get ready in the next day morning as he is going to the city to do some errands, and his sister has some too. Later that night, Orhan and Kader were having dinner, where he suggests they got. Kader want to go to a place where there is a tree, which is enchanted to them. Under the enchanted tree, she tells her husband that she might be pregnant, and that's the reason she is going to the city to visit the doctor. Elsewhere, the employee Halil, whom Orhan fired, hangs himself and commits suicide. The next day morning, Halil's wife causes a scene in the factory as she believes Orhan was the cause of her husband's death and curses Orhan that he will have a dark future. On the other hand, Sadat, his son Mehmet, and Kader were traveling to the city in a car where he gets a call from Orhan about the situation in the factory. After the call, they decide to get back to the factory. While he was to make a turn, their car gets hit by a truck. 3 months later, Sadat explains that he wants to forget 3 incidents which happened to him. First was his wife's death while giving birth to his son. Second was his son's last word "dad" right before the accident. And third was when he visited his sister a month after the accident. Cut to the scene 4 days before Sadat's visit to see his sister. Mehmet was shown where he was completely paralyzed because of the accident, and due to the guiltiness, Sadat visits his wife's tomb and cries his heart out. Kader, on the other hand, was seen where she forgot everything about her past because of the accident. Later that night, Sadat checks his son, and while he was in the room, he hears some strange noises and someone breaking the door. He opens the door and sees some writing in the floor, which disappeared when his mom switched on the lights in the room. In Orhan's house, Kader hears someone calling her from the basement room. She goes to check and suddenly gets violent and starts to hit the door as she sees a scary image in the door. Hearing the sound, Orhan calms her and tells her not to enter the basement room as it's creating her stress. He later casts a spell and puts some kind of powder outside and all around the house. Next day, Orhan's mom, Hadis, hears some voice whispering to her about her daughter-in-law ruining her son's life. She later walks out of the house where her husband stops her. In the house, Kader was looking at the dress which Orhan liked her wearing, which suddenly turns into a jinn and scares her. In the night, Orhan sees outside the window to see himself holding his injured mom's hand. He then places something on the yard and buries it and later casts a spell using his wife's photo. Sadat, on the other hand, has a dream of his sister. He wakes up from the sleep and sees his mom in the opposite room, who suddenly changes into a jinn, and his sister joins her mom and scares him from the other side. He gets up from the bed, and all this seems to be an illusion, and checks on his son. Next day, Sadat stops Orhan and asks for forgiveness, but Orhan warns him to stay away from him and his house. Later, Sadat sees his son walking from the wheelchair and drawing something on the wall, and he falls unconscious. Orhan later casts a spell using his parents' photo and then goes to their home and places it behind a mirror in their restroom. Sadat was distressed regarding the whole situation about his son, where his mom approaches him and tells him that they should visit Vasil Haja to help them. He gets angry and goes inside his son's room to see her sewing a dress. Orhan and Kader are seen walking towards the enchanted tree, where Orhan suddenly disappears and Kader sees him behind the tree with 4 dead bodies. He changes into a jinn and scares her. They both wake up as it was just a dream. In the morning, Sadat's friend looks at his condition and tells him to visit Vasil Hoja as he has helped his wife before. Later, Sadat takes his son to Hoja where he tells him that he has been waiting for him as the jinns had showed him. He then tells him that the jinns used his son to make him to reach the Hoja as they have a mission for him and asks him to be there at the next day afternoon. Later that night, Hadis finds the spell which Orhan placed behind the mirror and cuts it and dumps on the toilet. Next day, Orhan approaches Sadat and apologizes for his past action and asks him to bring his son for dinner the next day. In the afternoon, Sadat and Mehmet visit the Hoja where he performs a ritual for them and asks Sadat to go inside Orhan's house at night and burn an amulet similar to the one he has in his hand. Orhan dreams as his mom killing his dad and wakes up. He calls his mom, where she tells him that the jinns have his dad. Orhan reaches his parents' house to see them both dead. Sadat, on the other hand, reaches Orhan's house and gets inside, where his sister stands in front of him, but he doesn't see her. He walks through her to the basement room, where he sees his sister's dead body. He takes the amulet from the body and burns it. The jinns take Kader with them. Sadat then reveals the twist that Kader died in the accident, and Orhan didn't accept the fact. He dug her from the grave and used a spell to bring someone from another world, imprisoned her, and made her live as Kader. He tried to save his parents, but the jinns took revenge and killed them. They then used the Hoja to communicate with him to release their daughter. The good thing happened in this whole ordeal is that Mehmet started to walk after 15 days from the incident, and few weeks after that night, Orhan went missing. The movie ends with Orhan standing in Kader's grave, where Kader calls him from behind. To see more videos, hit the like, share, and subscribe button.